and welcome back to my channel. In this episode I'm going to demonstrate another free aggregation formulas which in total should enable us to build our first dashboard later on this week. If you look at my sample table here, the list of rows is a little bit too long for us to quickly visually make sense of the data. So let's try to apply some simple descriptive statistics to kind of paint a better picture of what we're looking at. For this video purposes, I want to establish what is the minimum, the maximum and average value for the entire table. Excel helps me to do it very quickly in the latest versions. I have the average value listed right here, and if I right click around this value, I'm given options to add minimum as well as maximum. So now we can see that the average value is 28.125, the minimum value is 5 and the maximum value is 100. This is a great starting point. However, for a real analysis, I need to be comparing apples to apples, which means I need those values based on a single or multiple criteria, which is exactly what the aggregation formulas will help us to do. Let's start by calculating an average value for a specific country. I'm going to go to Formulas, More Functions, Statistical, and select AVERAGEIF. For my range criteria, I'm going to select my country column. However, after I do that, I will press F4 to make it an absolute reference. You can hear more about this in my previous video. For the criteria, I'm going to select cell F26, where my Croatia value is stored. And for my average range, I'm going to select the value column, once again pressing F4 after complete. If I click OK to that, to demonstrate that it works, I'll drag the formula down. And let's take Croatia as an example. If I select all values for Croatia, you can see that the total is 60 divided by 4, which is the count, gives us 15. Now let's try to do the same for a specific country and a city. To do that, I'll once again go to Formulas, More Functions, Statistical. However, this time I'll select AVERAGEIF with an S that allows me to specify multiple criteria. This time our average range is going to be value column. If I select that, once again pressing F4 to make it an absolute reference. Criteria range 1 is going to be my country column. And once again, I'm going to hit F4 to make it absolute reference. Now for criteria 1, I'm simply going to write in double quotes Hungary. For my criteria range 2, I'm going to select the entire city column. Once again, pressing F4. If I drag this down again, for my criteria 2, once again typing in manually Debrecen. If I click enter to that, you can see that the value is 52.5, and if I manually check that, it is indeed 52.5. Now if I drag this formula down, you will notice that it's not going to work as expected. Reason for that is that we typed in values manually. If I change this to Croatia and this to Makarska, we're going to get correct average value for Makarska in Croatia. Now let's try to calculate minimum value for a specific country. In order to do that, I'll select cell H26, go to Formulas, More Functions, Statistical, and this time select MINIFS. For some reason, for both minimum and maximum, we only get MINIFS and MAXIFs, allowing us to select multiple criteria. However, if you think about this, if we just specify one criteria, it's going to work exactly as if it was MINIF. So let's carry on. For our minimum range, I'm going to select the entire value column. Once again, clicking F4 after doing so. For criteria range 1, I'm going to select entire country column. Once again F4 to finish off for the absolute reference, and criteria 1 in my case is going to be cell F26. If I hit enter and enter one more time, you will see that it will correctly give me the minimum value for Croatia. If I drag it down once, it's going to give me the minimum value for Hungary. Formula will be different for the last two rows, so let me once again go to more functions, statistical MINIFS. And then for my minimum range, it's going to be the entire value column, F4 to make it absolute reference. My criteria range 1 is going to be the country column, F4 for the absolute reference. Criteria 1 is going to be Hungary. Criteria range 2 will be the entire city column, F4 for the absolute reference one more time, and criteria 2 is going to be Debrecen. If I hit enter and enter one more time, I'm going to end up with the correct value. Copy that down, once again swap the country to Croatia and city to Makarska, and just to prove that it works, let's select all values for Makarska, and as you can see, the minimum value is indeed 10. Now the MAXIF formula works exactly the same as the MINIFS, so in order to save some time, let me just show you where you can find it, which would be formulas, more functions, statistical, and then if I scroll down to MAXIFs, and then just to show you the formulas behind the values. Now, as usually on my channel, let's try to apply this knowledge in the real world. I opened the Wikipedia page with average temperature by cities. I have data for Africa, Europe, Asia, America, and so on. And I already copied the address. If you want, you can write it down. If I go back to Excel, open a new document by pressing Ctrl N, I can now use the Power Query functionality to get this data into the spreadsheet. So if I go to Data, Get Data, from other sources, and then from Web, I will paste this address here. And after a while, Excel will ask me to select which data do I want. I'm going to select Europe as I'm probably best at pronouncing names of countries and cities from within this continent. However, this time I'm not going to press load, I'm going to go to transform data as there are a couple of problems with the data I've spotted. Now Power Query is a subject for another video, if not a series of videos, so I'm not going to go into details about what I'm doing. However, I'm happy to slowly start introducing it. The first thing I want to do is to make sure I only have columns I will be using, so I'll click on the country heading, hold Ctrl, click on the city heading, and then if I scroll to the right, hold Ctrl and click on the year heading. And if I now right click in the year heading, I have an option to remove all other columns. Now there is a small problem with our data. Under year column, I can see numbers in brackets. Displayed like that, Excel will not recognize them as numbers and will not allow us to do any mathematical operations, so we need to get rid of those brackets. If I go back to Wikipedia, I can see that numbers in brackets are in Fahrenheit, so let's try to get rid of them and only keep Celsius values. The simplest way I can think of doing it is if I click on the year header, go to Home, split column by delimiter. I'm going to leave everything as is and simply change that to the opening bracket, as this is the first character I want to get rid of. If I click OK to that, Excel should give me one more column. As you can see here, I can right click on the heading and remove that column, which should leave us with Celsius degrees only. Last step to do is to double click and change the name to year to make it a little bit more visible. And as you can see, all my steps are recorded here, so you can play with that and see what happens when you delete one or modify one. In my case, I only want this data to be available in Excel, so if I go to Home, Save and Close and Load, Excel should give me a table that we can use for our analysis. Now let's build a simple table for our analysis. I'll start with closing this part to gain some space. And let's start with G2 to say country, then maybe a minimum, maximum, and then an average. Let's apply a little bit of formatting, go from home, and then maybe double border at the bottom, and let's pick one country to start with. Let's choose Finland. I'll explain why in a minute. Let's start with the minimum. If I go to cell H3 and start typing MINIFS, I can select my minimum range, which for this purposes let's select the entire C column. Then my criteria 1 range, which is going to be a country or entire A column. And for my criteria, I'm going to select cell G3. If I close the bracket and hit enter, we can see that the minimum value is 2.7. And if I select all the values for Finland, I can see that the value indeed is 2.7. I could repeat the same steps to calculate the maximum, however there is an easier way. If I click on cell H3 and copy the entire formula, press Ctrl and C to copy the entire content, and then if I press escape, go to cell I3 and paste the formula. The only thing that changes is the beginning of the formula, so if instead of min I'll type in max, I should get the maximum value for Finland, which if you look at the 3 values is exactly 5.9. Now to finish off, let's apply the AVERAGEIF formula to get the average of Finland temperature. If I click on cell J3, start with equals to AVERAGEIF, and then for my range again entire A column, for my criteria column G3, and for my average range entire column C. I can see that the average value is 4, which if we check here is exactly 4. Now the reason I've chosen Finland is because it appears 3 times for 3 different cities. Let's try to prove that the formula works by choosing another country, for example Germany. So if I overwrite Finland with Germany, we should get the correct values for this country, and as you can see, this is the case. That's all I planned for this video. Thank you very much for watching. Once again, for those of you who did, thanks for watching the previous videos, and please stay tuned for a very important episode this week, which will be the summary of everything we've done so far and our very first dashboard in Excel.